Welcome back to another exciting episode of 60 Plus Uncensored. I'm your host, Seb Fry, and today's guest is Michael Seiler, endurance coach, performance guide, mindset coach, entrepreneur, musician, and co-founder of Meta Endurance. Michael brings more than 30 years of experience across corporate leadership, human resources, television, healthcare, and endurance sports to his work helping people develop sustainable high performance. As a USA Cycling Level 2 coach and Enlifted Method Level 2 mindset coach, Michael works with national champions, age group athletes, CEOs, teams, and everyday people like you who want to live with more energy, clarity, and purpose. Today, we'll talk about high performance as we age, the habits that build resilience, the stories we tell ourselves, and why Michael believes everyone is an athlete at heart. So without further ado, let's get into it. Michael, thank you so much for joining me here today on 60 Plus Uncensored. I'm really excited to have you. Now, for those of my audience who are not familiar yet with you, could you give us a little bit of an introduction? Who is Michael Seiler and what are you all about?
Sure. So whenever I get asked this question, I often think of like, who am I now? Um, I think if I step back, I would describe myself as a lifelong athlete. I've been playing sports, participating in some athletic endeavors since I was about 6 years old. I did spend, 30 plus years in the corporate world in healthcare. But the through line through all of that has been coaching, either just helping friends train for their first marathon or coaching Little League soccer. And so as I was thinking of winding down my corporate career, I was really thinking about where am I passionate? Where am I showing up really well at work? Where am I really showing up well in my life? And it always is, helping people achieve their goals. And so I started thinking about what do I want to do as I climb my second mountain, that post-corporate world. And so about 8 or 9 years ago, I had launched formally my coaching business. At the time, it was focused mostly on training endurance athletes, so marathoners, cyclists, triathletes. But then I started to really see an opportunity, and this is when my business partner, Holly Benner, and I formed Meta Performance Coaching about 4 years ago. We really saw an opportunity in the coaching landscape of you typically have your athletic coaches, whether that be golf or tennis or running or whatever, and then you have your corporate coaches or your professional coaches, so people that are helping you with your professional development. And they tend to stay in their lanes, and yet as I would talk to people as they're training for a marathon, for example, we would usually end up having to know what's going on at work because they have to travel or they've got a very demanding job, and so how do we manage and get those things in harmony so that they're not just grinding themselves down by burning the candle at both ends. And I even find my clients, when I work with them, whether I'm working with them primarily on a professional development standpoint or endurance, when I start to ask them about, well, what's going on in your life? What other stressors are there out there? Because the human body, to the human body, stress is stress, whether you're getting chased by a bear or you have a really big presentation to do to a C-suite executives. And so if you're trying to if you have a demanding job, you've got your home life roles, and by the way, you're training for an Ironman triathlon, that's a lot of stress that you're putting on your system. And so how, as a coach, can I help you manage all those and make adjustments? And that's why we think, my business partner, I think that the real role of a coach is to work with we call it the mind, body, and soul of a person so that they can sustain this kind of high level performance that they're after. Yes, I believe anybody can go out and do a Ironman triathlon, but can they sustain that type of activity? Can they sustain that type of training and keep the rest of the balls in the air that they have going on in their life? So primarily now, when I say who am I now, my full-time gig is coaching folks who have big goals and big dreams, and how can I, whether it's on the athletic side or it's on the professional side, how can I help them um, achieve those goals, whatever they may be.
Right. So you said something really interesting there. You said anyone can do an Ironman. Is that true? Can anyone do an Ironman?
I believe so.
Really? So, like, I'm 55 years old, and all my whole entire life, I have hated running. I just hated it. I don't run
Hmm.
well. My body doesn't feel good running. I don't think I've ever, like, maybe I remember, like, in junior high school running around the track like 4 times, and I did a mile because, like, they made me do it or whatever. But I think that's the last time I ever ran, like, a whole mile. Like, I can run down the
Okay.
block, and then I'm out, right? Like that's it. Like I'm just winded, and I do a lot of cardio. Like I'm on like a cross trainer or a bike all the time, but I just can't run. So is that like a mental thing, or
No,
I mean, because like,
what I've found the challenge with running for a lot of people, and I learned this when my wife was doing triathlons, and she was the same way. Love to bike. I can't go walking with her because she walks too fast for me. So she's a swimmer, had great cardio, but I think what happens when people start running is the body's trying to do two things. One, get fit, and then two, get used to the jarring of running and the pounding of running. And so when she was getting into triathlons, I said, well, let's not focus as much on the running. Let's get you on the bike and get the fitness there, and then we'll start to add in some running as time goes along. And we didn't start with go out and run 5 miles. It was, go run, walk. So run 5 minutes, walk 5 minutes, run 5 minutes, walk 5 minutes, to get your body used to that type of pounding, because it does. I mean, it is jarring and it hurts the first little bit, and I think that's why most people end up quitting running. Is it's just they never get past that point where they build up or they start too fast, and that's really where a coach can certainly help you, bring you along at the pace. Start where you are, and then bring you along at a pace that will get you through that period to where it does become more comfortable and you feel better about it.
all right. Well, we are Americans. I assume you're American anyway,
Yes.
and we are notoriously in poor health with like bad habits, couch potato, right? Like not much in the way of exercise. Typically, for most people, a fairly laid back lifestyle, and especially as we get older, maybe we're 60, maybe we're 70, lifetime of bad habits, right? And a sedentary lifestyle, right? So, is it possible for someone even who spent 40 years, maybe 50 years, like not really exercising, can they do an Ironman? Is that really even, I mean, maybe they're not going to win, but is it even possible to get across the finish line after decades of bad habits like that?
I believe so. I think the amazing thing about the human body is its ability to strengthen itself, recover, repair itself. And I mean, we've seen study after study that, people that even they wait until they're in their 60s or 70s to start lifting weights, and they're building muscle. And most people thought, oh, it's too late at that point. But the body responds to that type of stimulus and does what it does really well. It protects itself, builds the muscles up, gets stronger. The same with aerobic conditioning as well. You can still go out there now. Can you as a 80-year-old go run a sub 5 minute mile? Probably not, unless you were that type of miler before. But yes, I firmly believe someone with the right training plan and starting where you are could eventually uh, do a full Ironman.
Well, that is good to know. And just for my own edification, an Ironman is swimming, biking, and running, right? So is that correct? Do I have that?
That is correct. So full Ironman distance, what is typically referred to as long course, is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a full 26.2 mile marathon.
Right. And that's all at the same time. Is that like in one day, or is it over
Yes,
several
all in the
days?
same day.
All in the
Um,
same day.
all in this one right after the other. I joke that the Ironman is the ultimate Buddhist experience, because when you're swimming, you just need to be thinking about the swimming. You can't be thinking about the 112 miles of biking you got to go do, or the full marathon you have to run. And then when the swim is over, it's gone. in the past. It doesn't
Right.
exist anymore. You just
That's
think
right.
about the biking.
I love that. Be present in the moment, right? Only worry about your
Exactly.
next stroke, right? Like just take care of the
Exactly.
one stroke, and the next ones will take care of itself, and the ones in the past that they don't exist anymore. So no need to worry there. So that's pretty amazing, and maybe I should try and do an Ironman. If you tell me that I can do an Ironman at 55, I haven't. I mean, my habits have not been like atrocious. I'm not like the worst of the
Hmm.
worst, but I the thought of me doing Iron Man, that's like science fiction. That is like I don't see myself as being able to do that, but I want to talk to you about how that may be possible for me or for anybody. But before I do, I want to talk about how 2 days ago I sat next to a Marine, a U.S. Marine guy, and chatted with him for some time. And I've not talked to a lot of active duty Marines, but he's a recruiter, and so he was talking about basic training, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's every bit as hard as they say it is, but it's not really the physical that's the hard part." He goes, "It's like a mental thing, right? Like
Hmm.
it's all about mindset." So, how important is the mindset in this whole like Iron Man thing, right? I mean, like, is it okay? The physical very hard, but like, what makes it hard or easy? How does mindset play into that?
Mindset is, I think, crucial, and really, yes, you have to have the physical preparation to be able to, spend roughly, depending on how fast you go, um, 12 to 16 hours of exercise. But it's the mind, and I often tell people that when the mind goes, your race is over, because that's the thing that's keeping you going. When I think about mindset, my definition of mindset is that it's the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And we all have these stories, whether it's childhood trauma or it's something that happens at work or even positive stuff. Those stories just get on an infinite loop inside our brain. And if, like the old maxim, bad data in, bad data out, if you've got these stories that you haven't dealt with, and so you keep telling yourself. So, for example, you saying, "Oh, Ironman triathlon is science fiction." That's a story in your head that's telling you you can't do that. But what if you changed that and said, "Well, I can't do an Ironman yet." It's a totally different story. There's opportunity. There's possibility. And so a lot of the work, and I think the most fulfilling part of the coaching I do, is working with folks' mindset of whether it's performance related. They get super anxious leading into a race. Those race day jitters. How do we lessen the volume on them? Or if it's a professional, someone who has trouble getting up and doing public speaking because they're just a nervous wreck. So how can we change that mindset when they go into that? To be able to perform it, because that's typically it's the mindset that's holding folks back, not the physical or the preparation side of the coin.
Well, I would argue that if somebody is physically able of completing a Iron Man, that they're going to have probably a much better quality of life than someone who is has a hard time getting up to get out of their lazy boy to get a beer from the fridge, right? I'm guessing that like the Iron Man person is just overall probably happier, right? Probably going to live longer, probably going to have better relationships with a lot of people just because like they just have that energy, and we all need energy, I think, to be at our best. So given that, and given that you say that anybody can do it, and given that a lot of people who are over 60 or maybe even over 70 or maybe even over 80, they aren't necessarily working full time, and they do have some
Hmm.
slack in their schedule where they could be investing in themselves to do an Ironman. And like, I'm getting all fired up because like, I mean, I'm thinking like there's just no way, but this is a story I'm telling myself. There's no way that I can do it, right? Which that would make me think that there's no way that anybody who's 65 or 75 could do it. Let's just say though that there's a person out there and they're like, you know what? I used to play football in high school. I used to be in good shape, and here it is 50 years later. And like I'm just like I'm overweight and like I'm sedentary and like I'm not really feeling good in my body. Where do they begin? Like it begins in the mind, but like how do they begin to make that mindset shift to where like, you know what? God damn it, I got the time. I got nothing better to do. Why don't I just do an Ironman? Where does you even where do you even begin to like get your mind around, putting yourself in that path?
I think the place where start with all my clients is really understanding why they want to do this, and that's regardless of whether it's I want to do this big thing like an Ironman, or it could be a 100-mile bike ride. They want to do they've got some big goal, and I really want to dig into why it is, and if it's, and what I'm looking for is I want to see, is that coming from a place of intrinsic motivation? For example, your ex-football player who's says, I've got time now, I'm going to get back into it. Well, why is it important to you? And is it because, I remember what it was like to be in shape and be at the top of my game, and I want to get that feeling back, and I think this is the way to get there? That's great. If it's something like, well, I see my friends doing it, so I feel like I should be doing it. Well, that why is not going to get you up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the pool and swim. But that intrinsic motivation, having that really deep why, that's where we start when I talk with any of my clients, is why is this so important? Because this has got to be the thing that's going to be the anchor for the choices that you make, your decision to focus on sleep, your decision to do all the workouts, the decision to start eating right. It's similar to your core values, and understanding your core values is they become the framework or the foundation for making decisions in your life. And if you don't have strong enough why, it's going to be honestly really hard to get through the work, because you're going to spend way more time doing the work. I mean, when I look at my Ironman, so I did two full distance. I did them in about 11 and a half hours. That's a long day. But when I look back at the training, when you're doing 18 to 22-hour weeks of training, and that's just training. I was still working full time. I had a family, I had younger kids. So it's like a part-time job on top of all that. If your why isn't strong enough, it's going to be really difficult for you to keep pushing yourself, to keep doing the things that you need to do, to make the sacrifices to be able to achieve your goal. So that's where I start, is with their why. What are their values? Why is this so important to them? And sometimes that's meant, great, it sounds like you've got the mindset straight. Maybe we need to do a little work on the mindset, or maybe pick some smaller goals as a stair step to this bigger goal. So, for example, it may be, why don't we try a half Ironman, or even an Olympic distance? Something that they can go and see, do I even like this? Is it something I do want to do? So it really starts with what their why is, and why this is so important to them.
Well, so I have a why. I could give you several whys why I might want to do it, but you just said, do I even like this? I'm pretty sure I would hate it. I'm pretty sure that I would not like to go swimming for however many miles. I mean, am I swimming in a heated lap pool, or am I swimming in the frigid ocean, open ocean? Right? I mean, I'm pretty sure. Am I biking up a hill, or am I biking along a flat road for 120 miles? I could probably do that, because I'm very good at the elliptical, stationary bike. I'm sure I can do 120 miles, but I'm sure I would hate it. But can I hate it at the same time? Want to do it, or do I have to embrace the suck and love it in order to have. Is that part of the mindset I need to have? I need to love it in order to do an Ironman.
I think you need to love it. I mean, I'm not a strong swimmer at all, and that was my least favorite. It was the least favorite part of training. It was the least favorite part of the race. But so in that case, I just said I need to do enough work that I won't drown, that I'll finish in a decent enough time to get to my strengths, which were biking and running, that I do enjoy more. Do you absolutely have to love it? No, I mean, I know a lot of people who did one Ironman, checked the box, and have never gone back. And they realize that they did it and they're proud they did it, and they're glad they did it, but they won't do another one. Um, just either, there are any number of reasons: the amount of training it takes, the demand on their life, or they, in your case, maybe you say, well, I really don't like running, found that out. But I do think enjoying the process and enjoying doing the work is a prerequisite for any type of big endeavor like that.
Well, I think that I do. I read this great book about motivation, right? And it's, you can't really get motivated without action, right? Like motivation comes
Right.
from actually making progress, right? So I'm all about making progress. I like to see myself progress, right? So I think that would be great personally. Like that would be maybe enough to get me to keep on going. But seeing as I hate running, if I'm thinking about that, shouldn't I just do a train for a marathon first? I shouldn't just go to Ironman right away, right? Shouldn't one start with one of those three components before you start thinking Ironman, or is it okay just to start doing all three?
Um, the funny thing about coaching is my answer is often it depends. So part of sitting down with, let's say I were taking you on as a client, I would want to we would sit down at the first part, and I'd really want to understand, after getting through the why and, why these things are important to you, is really just start talking about, okay, where are we? And you would tell me, well, listen, I do a lot of cardio on my own. I feel good about biking. I feel okay about swimming. Running has always been an issue. Um, and maybe we do decide to say, well, okay, well, it's more important right now to get your running legs under you. And so we might de-emphasize, because that's the thing with an Ironman, the training doesn't go from 0 to 20 hours a week. It starts off, it's a steady incline as we build that. Because similar to your Marine example, they tear you down to build you back up. And so the importance is just to build along the way. So it might be that we decide after meeting that, hey, let's spend our time getting the running legs under you, de-emphasize some of the biking, introduce swimming. A good example is I've got a guy that I've worked with off and on for 3 or 4 years. He's a really strong swimmer. Running is where he's typically struggled in an Ironman. But he's the kind of person that we can wait until about 6 weeks out from the event to start introducing swimming, because he's that strong of a swimmer. So that gives us a lot more time on the front end to spend really working on his running, both his form, his fitness, increase the biking, and then we bring the swimming in almost at the last minute as he gets closer to the event. So it really, I mean, that's one of the things we do at Meta Performance, is it's not a cookie cutter situation. We're going to work with you, Seb, the athlete, where you are, understand your goals, and then we've put this plan together that's going to, if in this case, would build you up running so it gets to be comfortable, and then we'd start to introduce the other sports.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people are not really ever going to want to run a marathon or do an Ironman. Probably the vast majority, 99% maybe, something like that, right? So but they might want to improve, their lives, right? They might want to, just get physically fit. Maybe they're going to go on a hiking trip or something a little less intense, right? But they still have the same mental roadblock that somebody who is maybe going to do an Ironman might have. Is there where does somebody like that start? Like before they call you, are there any best practices for how you can start getting your mindset right to believing that you can improve your physical condition?
There are, and I think part of it is really starts with curiosity, and being curious. So your example is a good one, because the majority of the people that I work with, they just pick big events, and a big event might be a half marathon, might be a 10K. That's big to them, and so they want to prepare the best they can. But I think for someone that wants to do some pre-work, it's if you say, let's use a hiking trip, because I think it's a really good example, and most people could relate to that. And it's also prescient because my wife and I hiked half of the Cotswolds Trail in England last fall, and we're planning to go back. But it's so that you're hiking from end to end. You basically get up in the morning, put your day pack on, and you take off to the next town. And so you're hiking for 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes each day, and that's some serious physical exertion. And so I think for folks that say, that sounds interesting, I'd love to hike the English countryside and see what there is to see, is to start to lean in and be curious about what are the things that have held you back in the past. And start to identify those things and really being curious, why have I struggled with that? What was keeping me from doing that? And to really, start to even sitting down with someone they know, someone that would be an honest sounding board to them to say, here's what I've come up with. These are the things I think are holding me back. You're a good friend, you've known me for years. Do you agree that these are the right assessments of myself? Just to kind of check. Because we often will start to fall back on our normal excuses. Well, I was busy at work, or this, that, or the other. But really starting with being curious about what's been holding you back from doing it before. And then that gives you some points to say, okay, well, what would have to be true for me to overcome this, whether it's a roadblock or this perceived challenge to me? I just don't have enough time in the day. Well, could you get up a half hour earlier so you could, walk in the morning, for example, to get ready for the hike? Could you take walking breaks at work? So it's just starting to really be curious about what are those things that are holding you back. And often you'll find the answer right there. I find with most of my clients, 90 to 95% of the time, the answer is within them. It's just hidden behind all these stories and excuses that we've been giving ourselves. It's the I can'ts. It's like I will never be able to. That just stands in their way. So I would start with just being curious with yourself and about why you haven't done it before, and see if there's something that can lead you down a path to figuring out how to fix that situation.
Doesn't it always come back to fear? All right. People are afraid of what are they afraid of? It's not life or death, right? It's slow death maybe versus a good life, but what are people so afraid of? Why am I afraid to try and do a marathon? We just met, right? But in general, what are people afraid of? You've been doing coaching for a while now. So what are common fears that people have around becoming physically fit, healthier, and doing some of these amazing things that you can do with your body?
I love that you hit on this topic because it weaves into the whole notion of curiosity. But most of it's driven by fear. And there's really two sides of fear, which we see is one, people look at a marathon, for example, and they think, I'm not going to do that because I would probably die. And so it's the fear of, I'm going to hurt myself, or, whatever. There's the other side of the fear of, I'm afraid that if I put this goal out there and tell all my friends I'm running this marathon and they know my background, and then I fail, I don't complete it. Now what? Now I have this fear of the failure. So this isn't a fear of getting hurt, it's this fear of failure. And you'll see people who will actually sabotage themselves. Because we used to joke, we'd hear it at the starting line of bike races, is people would start with, well, I haven't really been training that much. I just jumped into this race at the last minute. They're already trying to lower the expectations of themselves and their opponents. And some of that's just fear of, well, what if I don't do as well as I should? Or what if my friends notice that I finished 20th? Instead of top 10. Fear is the biggest motivator or demotivator, I would say. And I think the reason I said it's linked to curiosity, we had a colleague that I used to work with who's written a book on curiosity. And she made this point that curiosity and fear can't exist in the same time in our brain. And so when you're faced with that fear, I'm afraid of running this marathon. I might get hurt. Well, let's break that down. Why do you think you're going to get hurt? To really getting curious and think about, okay, is this a rational fear? Like, is this real? Or is it something that I've just built up in my mind, knowing that, well, if I were working with a coach or even if I downloaded a training plan from the internet, it's going to bring me along and build me up. Could I go run a marathon uh, today? No. But given enough time and enough training and enough preparation, sure. But it's really using that curiosity to break down these fears, whether it's fear of failure, if it's fear of getting hurt, if it's whatever that fear may be. How can we really lean into it and figure out, is it rational? And if it's rational, okay, how do we deal with it? If it's irrational, which most of them are, there's ways around that. There's ways to solve it. So, for example, saying, "Oh, I can't do an Ironman." Why not? Why not? Ask yourself, why not you? Or people say, "Well, I don't deserve to win this race, or I don't think I've done enough training." Well, why not? Why not put yourself out there and just see what happens? What's the worst thing that, it's almost that worst case. What's the worst thing? Okay, you take some ribbing from your friends. Okay, did those friends even try to do it? Maybe not, probably not. So fear is definitely a big demotivator. I see it all the time, even with experienced um, people I've worked with for years. They'll move up to a bigger challenge, and all of a sudden that fear creeps in, and we often then have to go back and start to show all these proof points along the way. Where, remember when you thought running a 10K was out of your reach, and you've now done that 5 or 6 times? Remember when you thought a half marathon, or you couldn't run for more than a few blocks, and now you're running 3 or 4 miles a day? And so building those proof points helps dispel that fear that starts to build up.
That was very profound, what you just said about your friend, colleague who wrote that book about curiosity. What's the name of that book, by the way?
You would ask me. It is The Curiosity Curve. The author's name is Deborah, Debra Clary. It's very well written. It really, I've known her for years, and we worked together in the corporate world. And so when she put her book out, I picked it up and read it. And there's just so much. It's so well written. It's an easy read. She gives real life examples, and she's also got science and data to back it up, to back up her findings. Because I think that's one of the challenges, is that we're often curious about other things, but we don't spend a whole lot of time being introspective and being curious about the things that are working for us. Let's find out what those are, so we do more of that, and find out the things that are holding us back, and being curious about those things as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Curiosity and fear can't exist in the brain at the same time. That is pretty profound. I think I've maybe heard that before, but I clearly forgot it, because it sounds like this is new information, which I'm going to chew on for a long time. So if you're feeling fear, like let's just say you're a fear of even starting something because you think that you're going to fail, is that one of these key tools that you would suggest to people, is just first get curious and ask yourself, what are you so afraid of? And
Hmm.
like, do you just keep on going back and back and back until you find like the root cause? Or is there like some kind of like methodology or technique for like asking that question to like, like what direction your curiosity should lead or would take you to?
One of the tools I use is often referred to as story work, and that's a fancy name for really taking these fears or these stories that are in our head and getting out of our head and literally writing them down, getting out a pen and paper. It's more than journaling, but it's really, so let's say we go through this exercise, and and we're thinking about, we'll continue on the marathon example, um, never run one, not a big runner, don't enjoy it. So you break down the fear, and what I would typically have is have someone write that out as if they were going to tell this story to me. And what that does to the brain is, one, it slows you down because you have to take the physical act of writing it, just slows the brain down. It also moves you from this experiential, it's in my head, I'm thinking about it, I'm obsessing about it, and it moves you into observer mode. So now you can look at the words that you've written down, the story that you had in your head about why you um, couldn't run a marathon, couldn't get up and do public speaking, whatever the case may be. And now you can start to really tear this story apart and really, it's a little game I call fact or fiction. And I do this all the time with my clients, is I'll actually literally have them read their story back to me out loud. And at certain points I will say, well, is that actually true? Is that a fact? Well, no, I've done this kind of thing before, so I'll have them rewrite that line in their story, to get at what's actually true. And it's amazing. You start to see, these little micro stories, these little things we've wrapped around, to protect ourselves, because that's really what our brain's doing. Is it's trying to protect us, protect our ego. It's trying to protect our body, whatever. And once you start to peel those layers off, you really get to the root cause. And it may be, I'm just afraid I'm going to fail. Well, great. Let's figure out what's a solution for that. Well, I could research, how most people train for a marathon, or I could hire a coach, or I could just start where I am and start walking every day, and then maybe bring in some running. But it does, by getting that story out on paper, put you in observer mode, allows you to really determine what's real and what's not. And then you can start to develop a solution around to address the things that are true, and build a plan from there.
Yeah, you just said something. You're saying all kinds of interesting things, but like, so okay, so we have fear, right? Because our body wants to, like, our mind wants to protect our body, right? Not put us in harm's way or whatever. But so I've always thought of it like it's protecting our physical body, right? Essentially that it really came from that. But then you just said protect our ego, right? So like I read this great book a long time ago called Ego is the Enemy. I don't know if you've read that book, but like ego really gets people screwed up in so many different ways, right? So like, tell us more about that. Like how much of fear is really about ego?
I think it does play a big part in holding people back. I think this is why I was giving the example earlier where people will actually sabotage their race, either by starting to lower their own expectations. Those kind of things really are, I'm just trying to protect my ego. I mean, if someone's going to sign up for a bike race, they're typically fit enough to complete the bike race. But what often gets in the way is their ego of, well, what if I don't do well? Okay, well, what does that mean? What does well mean? Um, but I think ego plays a big part in a lot of the stories the ways we respond or react to situations are driven by our ego. I don't want to go to this social setting because people will think I'm a nerd or something, so I'm just going to avoid that. I mean, it's why people avoid situations all the time, I think, is that some of it is driven by their ego and their concerns about what people will think about them. And the truth is, 97, 90, maybe 99% of the people don't care. Nobody cares about my old race results. I'm the only one that gives a crud about it. Nobody cared. I mean, I remember when I finished my first Ironman, the friends they didn't ask me what place I came in. They didn't ask what my time was. They were there celebrating the fact that I completed this big thing. And, you know, nobody ever asked me. I mean, I had other triathletes, of course, want to know my time, but again, they were just like, "Oh, that's amazing," or "That's cool." But it wasn't. There was no judgment, but I think we build this esteem of this ego gets in the way of what are people going to think about me? How are they going to perceive me? And it happens to newbies. It happens to even experienced people. You've built this. I mean, I used to get nervous before bike races because I was starting to get good. And then, of course, people are like, well, why is he sitting mid-pack in this race? He's normally up at the front. And you start to think about those things, and it's easy for the ego to get better. Well, maybe I should just, drop out or not register for the race because I've now built this reputation of someone. Versus most people don't care. Most people would just assume, oh, he must be having a bad day. So the ego definitely gets in our way, and drives that fear. And I've seen it both in professional settings and in athletic settings.
Right. Yeah. So again, you've said some interesting things there. But ego, like I think it screws up so many people all the time. It's like just get over yourself, right? I mean, like I think just people they can't get over themselves. They can't get out of their own way, and what was blocking them from progress is basically ego, right? They're worried about getting their ego bruised because they did come in first place or mid pack. I mean, for me, it would just be like just crossing the finish line would be like just an enormous accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
That's good enough. And also, you just said like 97 or 98% of people don't care about you. It's actually like 99.9999%, right? Like it's amazing if your husband or your wife or your kids or your parents care about you, really. Because most people are just only wrapped up in their own individual thing, right? I mean, like it's all me, and it's not really you. And like, yes, you're very close family and you're very close friends. We're talking a circle of maybe 10 people, 20 people, they might care about you. But beyond that, no one really going to give you the time of day. I mean, maybe they will because they're a nice person, but no one's going to be hung up on your failures. They're not really going to care about that, right? So like, go ahead and fail because nobody really cares if you do, and no one really cares if you succeed. And that's kind of, that's just the way it is. That's what I think. So people don't like, my wife, for example, she's like always worried, what are other people going to think? And like the answer is they're not going to think. Mm-mm. They don't care about us, right? Like they might like look at us for like one fleeting second and going like, I can't believe she wore that dress, but that is going to be gone in a second. And that thought has much as entirely to do about that person and nothing to do with you, honestly,
sure.
Right? Yeah, for sure. So just get over yourself and get out of your way and don't worry about that because nobody cares. Just concern yourself with you and not your ego. And I think that would be very freeing as well. So we've talked a lot about Ironmans and marathons and all that, and about mindset, but you're coaching and you're like a holistic coach, right? Like you're not just about physical fitness and all that. How can like the same mindset techniques that one might use to like get off the couch and become an Ironman, how does that impact other aspects of your life? Like for example, like diet, which is a horrible problem that so many people have. They eat processed junk food and it's horrible and they're killing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
or like personal relationships with their parents, their kids, their spouses, or their friends, right? Or even at work. A lot of people, they're over 60, but they still work. Maybe they're business owners, maybe they are involved in a board or, like volunteerism, and they are working. They're not maybe getting paid, but they're actually doing productive work. How can that kind of coaching that you provide help folks be successful in non-physical aspects of their life?
Well, the cool thing is, and I've seen this in my business, I've experienced it personally, is a lot of the principles are the same in that to get better at anything, to be a better public speaker, to be a better friend, to eat better. You have to start somewhere, and you have to start to have you have to have a system. So there needs to be a system, And then you need to put in enough stimulus, whether that's for example, in the training side, it's how much training stimulus is the right dose. In the corporate side, for example, someone has, difficulty with public speaking, they get super anxious. How can we create some situations that start to build, repetition to put a little stress so they can get more comfortable being a public speaker? But those systems or the principles are basically the same. Is that you have to build a system that's going to support you. Nutrition, since that's where we started. Don't try to do it all at once. Don't throw everything out and just start eating vegetables right out of the gate. You start with a plan and you say, well, what's the smallest thing you could do today to take a step towards better nutrition? Well, I've got this bag of chips sitting on my desk. I could go throw those away. Okay. Well, so don't buy any more chips. Maybe that's the first step. Is okay, I'm not going to bring them in the house. But start to build this system, because it's going to be that system that's going to get you through, so that things become just like riding a bike or just like running, that it becomes just automatic. That's what we're looking for, is that similar to, regardless of public, I'll go back to the public speaking thing, is like, how can we get enough repetitions in like I'm lifting weights or something, so that it just becomes automatic. Hey, I've got my next speaking engagement. Great, I've got a system. I know how to prepare for it. I know what I need to do. You might be somebody that just needs to practice 100 times, and that's the secret to your sauce. Maybe you're someone that's better at winging it, but you do need to do your research first. You find that system that works for you, and it starts with the smallest step. What's the smallest thing you could do today to get you on track for wherever you want to go? With eating, going back to it starts with the why. If nutrition is something you want to tackle, why is that? Why is that important? Because that, again, is going to be the thing that's going to continue to motivate you along this journey, because you're going to have hiccups. You're going to be somewhere and go, those fries look really good. And what's going to be the thing that's going to say, oh, no, I'm going to get the salad instead? But it's building those systems, and the principles are very similar to the athletic side of how do we create a plan, build the system, get repetition, introduce some stimulus so that your body can say, okay, that wasn't too bad. I can go a little harder next time, or I can, now instead of just not buying the chips, I'm not going to have them when I'm out, or I'm going to now introduce, more tomatoes in my diet. It's just picking those small things along the way to start to build these habits so they just become automatic.
Hey, I got the guy on the internet telling me I shouldn't eat tomatoes because they have lectin in them and it causes inflammation. I don't know. Is that true? I don't know.
Stay off the internet, I think, is the issue.
Stay off the internet. I live on the internet. I love the internet. All right. So build a system, basically, and repetition. So that is essentially what we're talking about. If you want to be successful in anything, is you're suggesting that build a system, come up with a plan, and then lather, rinse, repeat, and keep doing that until it becomes ingrained, like a habit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like at some point, does it become unconscious?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think you really start to get to a point where, going to the restaurant and saying, yeah, I will have the salad instead. I mean, I notice when I really get focused on making sure, because I think people tend to slide. You'll have these little moments. Vacation's the worst because you're often eating out more often. And then all of a sudden I've gotten to the point where my body just starts like craving vegetables. And so it's like, okay, I just need to reset and get back into my old habits because we were on vacation. But yeah, it just becomes, I think, a point where your brain, and that's what we're trying to do, where your brain's not really spending much time thinking about it. It's just automatic. I go to get the salad. I go, to the lean meats. I skip the fries, and it just becomes, again, automatic.
Right. And that's what we should all do. But I mean, speaking of which, I'm going on vacation very soon. And It's going to be a longer vacation for me, 18 days. And,
Okay.
I want to be trying all the food in all the different countries I'm going to go to, right? Because that's a big part of the culture and yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to be falling off my relatively okay diet, right? I mean, like I eat a lot
Hmm.
of salad, and salad isn't really a big thing in a lot of the world. Actually, they don't actually have like a lot of salads. They don't really, you know, I mean, they don't, right? I mean, like it's a
Yeah.
very, I know, I mean, they have different salads, but they'll have like potato salad or something like that, right? I mean, it's not like a green leafy salad. And so I do have that issue when I come back from a vacation, in that like I'll be eating more carbs because, like, god damn it, bread tastes good, right? And a
Yeah, it
lot of
does.
places they have bread, right? And then they have rice, like in Asia, right? And there's a lot of delicious rice over there. And so like I get out of my like habit of eating low carb, and I try to. I'm not a maniac about it or anything like that, but I'm cognizant that too many carbs are not helpful. How do you get back, like, from a period of breaking the habit because you have a good reason, because you're on vacation or whatever? How do you get back into it? How do you resume your good? Because that's my thing, is like it might take me a month or two to get back into a good habit.
I think part of it is kind of going back to on the athletic side. Um, you know, a lot of clients I work with, we've been working together for 4, 5, 6 years, and we build an annual plan, and we say, okay, you're going to train for this event, and then we're going to have some downtime where you're going to do whatever, almost do whatever you want to do. Go do more hiking, go spend more time with friends, because it does allow your body to recover from the stress you've put on it. In this situation for the vacation is just be planful about it. Put a plan together that says, okay, when I'm going to this country, yes, go enjoy the vacation. Um, Enjoy, that's why you're going. Enjoy the experience, learn about other cultures, but then have a plan for your reentry. Okay, when I get back, I mean, you could write it out on a calendar. Here's the meals I'm going to have my first few weeks back. Or even just writing yourself a note. I'm starting, it's almost like I'm starting training the day I get back. Training in this case would be I'm going to get back into my habits of um, eating better, because I know I went and I enjoyed myself and I had this great experience. Um, and now it's just have a plan for re-entering back into your better eating habits.
Have a plan, have a system. All right. Well, I like that. Now, I understand that you are into meditation, and so
Yep.
I'm a failed meditator. I'm a serial failed meditator. I have the Insight Timer app, and every day it bings me and says time to meditate, and I'm like, okay, swipe left, goodbye, right? So, how does meditation help people with some of the things that we've been talking about here? Mindset, overcoming fear, overcoming ego. How does meditation help with any of that, or does it?
It does. Much of the ways, and it's. I think meditation. It can be hard getting started, keeping the practice. But the ways in which it really helps is it does help you quiet the mind. Um, the sheer number of thoughts that go through your brain um, are in the tens of thousands, and those are the ones we acknowledge that are going on. That doesn't even count the ones that are going on outside that are kind of beyond our conscious. But that sitting still, sitting in stillness, sitting in quiet allows you to, one, recognize those thoughts are going on, and to start to create this non-attachment or this detachment from those thoughts. The ways that helps you in the mindset game is it does start to help you realize that we are not our thoughts. Our brain is just constantly, it's doing worst case scenario planning. It's thinking about what you had for lunch. What are you going to have for dinner? That person looked at me funny. And what meditation helps you understand is this is just your brain's hyperactivity. A lot of this stuff isn't real. Some of it is. And you can really start to become non-attached. It's similar to the writing your stories down. It's getting them out of your head so you can really be an observer of those thoughts. And with practice, you get better and better at that. And I will tell you, I've been meditating. I mean, really, I would say actively, regularly meditating since college. And there's days I struggle, and I'll sit on the mat or sit in a chair and try to start meditating, and I'll get 4 or 5 minutes in it, and I'm like, it is just not happening today, and I'll stop, and maybe I'll try again later that day when my mind's a little more calm. For some people, it's just finding the right time. I find mornings are better. I don't have a full day of work and other things in my brain that are just more activity. But that's really the power of meditation, is really starting to not only notice the thoughts, to become non-attached to those thoughts, realize that we are not our thoughts. But it's also an opportunity to use some of that curiosity. This thought just popped up in my head. Why is that? Is that something that's bugging me? Why is it bugging me? What's behind this thought? Or is it just something that, wild, and I can dismiss it and let it go? And in fact, in that book we were talking about before, The Curiosity Curve, Deborah has a meditation for kind of curiosity, for unlearning things. And it's basically that, to sit in silence, and these thoughts that come into our head, is to take the time to say, well, why am I thinking that? What's on my mind? And you can make that decision to say, oh, that's a silly thought. I'm going to let that go. It's not important. Or there might be something that you want to lean into and really pull apart and be curious about. And you can come to some real revelations there. But I think, I tell people the right amount of meditation is the amount that you can do that day. So if 2 or 3 minutes of stillness is all you can get in that day, that's great. If tomorrow's a better day and you can get 10 or 12 minutes, that's great. But it's that we all need that stillness, especially with all the digital distractions, the things coming at us just 24/7. But finding those moments through the day of, whether it's just spending time staring out the window at the trees or going for a quiet walk, all forms of meditation, all forms of stillness, to allow your brain to de-escalate all the cortisol that's flowing through, and really down-regulate. And I think that's the power of meditation. That's what I've found valuable about it.
So you were saying that you have these thoughts, and you should try to think, like, why is that thought? Where's that thought coming from? I thought in meditation you're not supposed to think. I thought you're supposed to like focus on your breathing, focus on one point, whatever, and like hold that point and just continue to breathe, and that's all you think about, right? So am I wrong? I mean, does meditation have like a thinking component to it as well?
There's certainly a thinking component as well. I mean, in general, my goal is, unless I'm doing it because my probably 90% of my meditation is just getting still and absent of my thoughts, to let my brain just kind of stop. Because it does help me in other situations where I'm in the line at the DMV and I can feel my anxiety rising. It really is that meditation helps me down-regulate, to say, okay, I see you, anxiety. I'm not going to pay any attention to you. I'm going to focus on my breath now. And so it is a tool that can help me in situations like that. But there is a component of, I've got something on my mind, maybe I've been dealing with it for a few days, and sometimes I will use my meditation time to really to focus in on that and think through that. And it's still, that's the thing, is it's a focus. And that's what meditation allows you to do, is to increase your ability to focus on something. Our problem today is we don't have a lot of deep focused work. We're constantly interrupted, whether it's by our IMs or app alerts or social media. So our brain doesn't get that time to really do deep work. And that's where meditation can really help you learn how to do that deep work, by either focusing on pushing things out of your brain or taking something and really working on it and laser-like focus in on that
All right,
issue.
I love it. I love it. But then you said something. You said, "But we are not our thoughts," which begs the question. So what are we?
Ooh.
If we're not
Um,
our thoughts, I mean, like I identify a lot with my brain, my mind, I guess you would say, which those are thoughts, right? So like, okay, well, if we're not our thoughts, then what is there?
I think that's for us to discover. Um, I think the challenge, though, is our thoughts block everything out, and we tend to pay too much attention to those thoughts and give them too much credence, too much weight, when reality is usually something different. And so it's when I say we are not our thoughts, it's an encouragement to really move beyond what's going on in the brain. Be curious about why you're thinking that, and playing my fact or fiction game and really discovering, is that really true about me? Is that really true about this situation? Because often the thoughts we have are not really what's going on.
Right, right. Interesting. So it's incumbent on ourselves to find out what we are, to dive
Absolutely.
deep, to dive deep. There is no one size fits all for that. All right. Well, we're just about out of time here, and that's too bad because it's been a really enjoyable conversation. So, if people wanted to get a hold of you to talk further about enhancing their performance in life, not necessarily physically, but just the mental game, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I send folks to two places. They can learn more about my company, as well as we have bios of our coaches on our website, and it's metta, performance.com. The other place, the channel we use most in the social media space, is Instagram, and we're at meta.performance. So those are the two places you can not only learn more about us, what we do. You can also schedule an introductory call, um, which I do with all my clients, is just to learn more about them. Um, am I the right coach for them, or is it better you work with one of our other coaches? And it really just, so it starts with that discovery call of what they're trying to do.
How many coaches do you have?
We've got four right now. There's my business partner, Holly Benner, who's a former professional triathlete. She's an organizational psychology um, person. And then we've got two other coaches, one who focuses primarily on triathlons. And then my daughter is also a coach. She is a cycling coach. She raced professionally, both collegiately and professionally in Europe. So she focuses primarily on cyclists.
All right, right on. And then I believe you have a podcast. Is that right?
We do have a podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and it's the Meta Performance Podcast. And really, we go deep into, we're interviewing CEOs, musicians, interviewing a friend of mine who's a full-time comedian pretty soon. But we really start to pick apart their story about how they see high performance, how they've built sustainable high performance. And so it's really been interesting to hear these people's stories about how they've built a life of success and balancing all the demands that they have in their lives.
All right, that sounds like a great podcast for me to subscribe to because I'm all about that, hard as that is to believe. But all right, Michael, thank you so much for joining me here on 60 Plus Uncensored. I really appreciate you taking the time to bathe our listeners in all this amazing knowledge that you have. It's been fantastic.
Well, thanks for having me, Seb. This was a really fun conversation. I really enjoyed it.
All right, well, I am going to subscribe to your podcast, and until then, I'll catch you on the flip side.
Sounds good.
That's a wrap for this episode of 60 Plus Uncensored. Huge thanks to Michael Seiler for setting the tone with such honesty and insight. Hey, if you like this episode, do me a favor, do Michael a favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share it with someone you know who needs to hear it. Oh, and by the way, if you know anyone over 60 who's still out there doing big things, living boldly, working with purpose, or aging on their own terms, I would love to hear from you. Reach out at team60plus.com or join the conversation at 60 Plus Living on Facebook. I'm Seb Fry, and this is 60 Plus Uncensored. Because as we're learning, life after 60 isn't the end, it's just getting good.
Subscribe now.